Welcome to the strategic workshop for April 6th. And if we could start with a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we usually start off our meetings with public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to give their public comment on this matter? Okay, seeing none. We'll start off then with Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer, giving us a budget preview and TDP update.
Good morning. Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer for HART. So this morning starts our preparation for next year's budget. I know it may feel like we just closed out FY15s and approved it in the latter part of last year, but we are very committed to an annual budget process of monitoring and development. So today begins the discussion that we will have with you over the next 5 months. Today's overview is really just a discussion of bringing you up to date on our processes that we use in the development of the budget at HART, some foundational elements that we have as we start to move forward, early revenue projections. But again, it is very early in discussion. This is just an overview of what we will be working on and bringing back to you over the next few months. And a couple of years ago, we made the commitment that we would tie the annual update for the transit development plan with the budgeting process. That mandated state document is due to FDOT in September of each year. This is our last annual update until the full update for the 27 TDP that Ms. Egan referred to earlier at the board meeting. I will give you a very high 2-slide overview of what we're looking at as far as preliminary development of that document moving in to the remainder of the year. And we may not be moving anywhere.
Batteries. Is it on?
As we wait for the technical movement, let me go ahead. You have it in front of you, so I will go ahead and get started. Each year we talk about, specifically with under the direction of the CEO, specific goals for the budget for the coming year. And over the last 3 budget years, we have been specifically mandated one key goal of maintaining current service levels, no reduction in service, and at the minimum maintaining current service levels that are on the street presently. So again, that's one key goal going into FY16. Also, the commitment I mentioned earlier, we want to provide limited enhancements to current service based on the TDP. Again, that's the status quo plan each year. Again, that will be the basis of conversation and planning as we move forward. TDP will be the baseline as funding allows, and we'll talk about that much more in depth as we move through this presentation. But again, if funding allows, we will adhere to this TDP and move status quo enhancements forward. And just as a reminder, we're talking about enhancements to routes, not expansion of routes, not new routes, nothing that requires a new physical bus. These are using the service that we currently have on the streets, either extending weekday or weekend hours. We'll also continue to look at continued long-term fiscal sustainability as a plan. We want to keep adding to the savings account or to the piggy bank. As you may recall, 2 years ago, we added a key performance indicator, a KPI, for ensuring that we do plan on dropping a specific amount or percentage of the previous year's fund balance to the bottom line over the last 3 years. We have achieved that, and we want to continue to grow that, not only in the case of emergencies, but at the discretion of the board for future enhancement or investment in service. We also, and this is something that we have talked about starting about 1.5 years ago, is the migration away from our federal formula for operating. I'll get into detail about that in a couple of slides, but there was a decision made by the HART board in the FY7-8 timeframe as ad valorem started to decrease, that federal formula funding would be pushed over, swapped from capital investment to operating to make up that deficit. Well, as we are starting to see an annual increase now in our ad valorem, we are starting something called a recalibration, where we're able to start to shift some of that federal formula from operating back to capital to make some of the necessary capital improvements that are needed. Another key goal, we want to prepare HART for future growth, whatever that picture may look like. There are many conversations, as we are well aware of, but we want to ensure that this organization is ready to accept whatever challenge in growth comes forward. Thank you. And what does that mean? 1, it means saving for the future. 2, it means ensuring that our current infrastructure, our facilities, our personnel are prepared for an expansion. So those are our key goals. And of course, our primary goal is to support the strategic goals and initiatives and objectives of you, the board, and of our Chief Executive Officer.
Yes, you can comment, Ms. Shanahan.
Going back to the federal funding in terms of capital versus operating, can you explain that to me? I mean, how you can just, you get a designation from the feds and you can alternately, independently move it between those two?
Only federal
things?
formula.
Okay.
And the federal formula, which, let me jump over here, which you can use it on only is preventative maintenance.
Preventative maintenance, okay.
Typically, if we receive, as an example, the majority of our bus replacement program is all federal capital dollars. We can't randomly take that money and use it for any type of operating. It's specifically for that capital investment. The federal formula, the 5307 funding, is one of those rare exceptions that it's at agency discretion, but it can be used only on preventive maintenance. We can't use it on other non-operating or other operating functions, such as my salary or the CEO's or administrative support. It has to be in the preventive maintenance function of keeping the federally funded fleet on the road.
And can you use it besides buses for vans or?
Vans, yes,
Okay,
yes.
any sort
All
of-
revenue vehicles.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So something that we started 3 years ago is a 5-year look ahead. We just don't want to see the next year, but we want to see the impact of the decisions for that next year into the next 5 years. So I want to draw your attention to a couple things. And again, this is very, very early in the process. We will not receive final property valuations until June. But what we're looking at right now is a pretty good plan. So I want to go through each one of these. Our property taxes and make up 48% of our overall revenue for HART. Right now, we're looking at a 4% growth rate for modeling and planning purposes. Right now, the State Department of Revenue is suggesting a 6.1% increase that they're hoping to see for the county going into next year. Again, we try a very conservative approach in our planning. Last year, that conservative approach, we got to the June timeframe and we ended up with another $800,000 of ad valorem that we were able to plan and use. But we would rather go into the planning phase looking at only a 4% increase. That's about a $1.27 million increase in ad valorem for next year. So that's what we're looking at for our ad valorem. The subsequent years.
I believe Commissioner Merman has a.
Can I ask a question? The property taxes are paid by all the taxpayers in Hillsborough County. How much of our bus service, city to county, is it still 75-25 or something like that? I mean, do you have that calculation, the current one for right now?
We don't have it for this current fiscal year, but we can fresh that up and get it out probably by the end of the week.
What was the last one? I can't remember exactly, but I know it was some, it was. It was more like 70-30 or 75-25. I mean, I'm asking a question. If we're getting this growth in property tax revenue, we need to dedicate a portion of that to service in the unincorporated area, because that's where we're getting the biggest pushback in our Go Hillsborough is at the outskirts. People want more bus service, and I know they want more routes inside the city, but we have no bus service in the county. Those people work in town. Those people are more dependent on their cars than anybody. So I guess I'm asking, and you know, we can't make that decision right now, but as we move forward, I would like to see a dedicated portion of the increase of revenue going to service in the unincorporated areas.
Commissioner, we'll get the updated numbers for you this week. Well, I mean, clearly we'll get them for the full board. When we go to the next presentation, clearly we are talking about finding new ways to get service out into the outlying areas of the county, because we have a chunk of our county where 1,100 square miles, 250 square miles is within 3/4 of a mile of a bus stop. 3/4 of the county is too far a way to walk or reasonably get to a bus route. I contrast that with as Mr. Marr was stating previously, we have routes in the city that certain times of day you just can't get on them. So we've got this opportunity in the next presentation to talk about what's the best way to serve these areas where we don't have 40-foot buses.
Rides.
And how do we live with a universe where it's still going to take us 18 months to buy a new bus, even if we have a funding agreement, if we're talking about leasing, if we're talking about being creative in how we pay for them, that's too long for folks to wait. So we'll have that conversation today.
And if I can just quick follow-up, I mean, that's why the discussion with PLG is so important, and that TDP being meshed into the needs and wants of every, you know, because they're putting the lists together. They're taking your list, they're taking the LRTP, they're taking, you know, the county, the feedback from Go Hillsborough. So all the needs are getting pushed into one list. Now, I want to make sure, Catherine, that you're at the table with the TDP so that those needs, but I hear what you're saying, but I want to put our money where our mouth is on this with unincorporated Hillsborough County, and I'm seeing this revenue go up in 4 years, $5 million. I mean, a good portion of that has to go to the county. So, enough said.
Are you looking for maybe how many service miles are in the city versus unincorporated contrasted with?
Oh, I've seen that report.
Okay.
I've seen that report. Yes, there are more miles being serviced inside the city than the county, because we have no service in the county.
Right.
I mean, definitely there would be more miles serviced. So I'm just saying that when we get to making decisions, I'm going to propose a policy statement about this. I think we need to move forward on it.
So maybe having the financials disclosed is what we're looking for then.
Absolutely.
As far as the contrast between the two. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
I agree with Commissioner Mormon on this. I do think we need more service in the county. But the question is, all of our service originates in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to put some more miles in the city even to get to the county. So we'll probably have to look at a whole different kind of scenario in terms of servicing the outer areas. And you cannot use the system that we're using now, because it's going to always have that unbalance. So I think we need to look at how we're going to dedicate or realign our services in order to accomplish that goal.
Well, and if I can follow up on that, if you remember a discussion we've had about vehicle yards that Hillsborough County vehicles were using that are being relocated to other places, yes, we would have to have other vehicle depots, I guess, in other parts of the county to help make it more streamlined. Absolutely. We discovered one, there is one, by Eisenhower and East Bay High School that the county owns. that could easily be used for HART vehicles. There's one up in the West Chase area also. So there are possibilities, but I do think we have to think outside the box. And Catherine, just what you said, that is the conversation needs. How do we make it happen and go forward?
We're really talking about circulators.
More circulating.
More circulators, yeah.
Right, which would be the few.
Like to move forward with a strategic plan that addresses that with not just circulators, but technology focuses, rideshare, carpools, van pools, the whole toolkit to meet these really unique needs. It's time to address them. And give us 5 minutes and we'll get there.
Okay, so let's continue on with
Thank
the
you.
budget discussion.
We're anxious.
So this is our 5-year look ahead. Again, let me draw your attention to the red. For those that have been on the board for multiple years, you know that we have consistently seen red in the out years. Our commitment, obviously, is to mitigate that red, which we have done every year. Again, this is based on what we know right now, and we all know looking out 3 to 5 years is a difficult modeling perspective, especially on tax revenues, but this is what we use as our basis moving forward. Next. We talked about 48% of our revenues coming from property value, or from property taxes. This is a slide we introduced a couple of years ago to show how ridership has been outpacing our ad valorem. We are still in pre-2007 ad valorem revenue amounts, but we have been able to provide ridership for almost 20% more of the riders than were in existence in 2007. So although the revenue has not caught up, we are investing it in the infrastructure needed to sustain this influx of ridership. All right, you can go to the next one. Then the next one. We talked about the 5307 formula funding recalibration. We talked a little bit about it briefly. Back in FY 2012, we were devoting 92% of the federal formula funding to operating. We are now reducing that down to 79% of our federal formula funding, which in turn pays for wages and benefits for our maintenance staff, wages and benefits for CIP and grant staff, since they support the federal grants programs, and then tire replacement for bus and paratransit vehicles. So what we are really trying to do is to recalibrate the use of this funding. We have when we get to it, we have a CIP deficit, not just in our vehicle replacement, but in facilities upgrades, facilities rehab, that this funding can be used for. So we want to start swapping it out, and we have started to slowly beginning last year, and we will continue to do so in the coming years. Next. So our key drivers and assumptions that we have to manage, we went over our goals, but what do we really have to manage as we move forward? One, we are still seeing a very incremental growth in operating revenues. Again, I mentioned our 48% of our revenue is still at sub 2007 levels. We are expecting modest ad valorem growth, 6.1, our model uses 4. We have added additional revenues in the mix over the last couple of years, including CNG state rebates that we receive from the Department of Agriculture for every CNG vehicle we buy, whether it be a bus or a van. We do receive funding back, which we have diverted back into our vehicle replacement program. We have added Megabus and Red Coach revenue, although that is incrementally small per year. We have advanced much of that funding specifically for reinvestment in our Marion Transit Center facility with beautification and rehab. So that is funding that we did not have a year ago that we do have now that we can put back into those facilities. And then bus ridership. Ms. Egan mentioned that we've seen 20% increase over the last 5 years. We're starting to plateau. We're not having those large growths each year that we have been able to plan on. So we have a modest 2% growth in FY16 estimated. Our stagnant growth in capital funding is continuing. That one reason why we're trying to shift our federal formula back over to capital. We are at the mercy of federal grant programs for our bus replacement program. Although this year we are going to start looking at innovative financing solutions to hopefully get our fleet up to where it needs to be as far as our replacement cycle with CNG vehicles. Going into this year, we are going to be in negotiations with our bargaining units. That is an unknown as we move into the budget development process, so we have to keep that on our radar. And in FY15, the year that we are right now currently in, and not even halfway through yet, we have seen an 18.7% increase in our healthcare claim activity.
And to bear in mind, we're self-insured, so this is what we're actually seeing. It's not somebody else's premium. But the executive team met last week for our first look at what the benefits will be for calendar 16. And we've got some proposals in there of some premium sharing, but also looking at incentives for folks who have coverage elsewhere if they'd like to opt out, looking at some wellness biometrics. So we'll come back with more information, but we are aggressively working on this and managing our healthcare costs.
Question,
If you look at that increase with the stuff that you have to compare with
We are still well ahead of the game. Over the past few years, the savings we have seen from being self-insured are in the several millions of dollars. So when we were going out for service, we were seeing 10 to 15% increases every year. When we moved over to self-insurance, we stopped the growth the first year, and then we've had much slower growth. So still over the long run, self-insurance was the best business decision for us.
You go to the next slide. Some more key drivers and assumptions to manage. We're looking at shifting to the non-bargaining employees a performance-based compensation program. In the last couple of years, it has been COLA-based. We're looking at a process and a system to be able to gauge employees' achievement of key performance goals and indicators as a basis for compensation increases. So that would be something that we're working on for this budget process. We're looking at a heavy investment back into HART support functions. From 2007, we have shed a lot of our, what we would consider administrative support, the internal functions of the organization. And as we start to move forward with many of the programs you're going to see in the next presentation, strategically out for the next few years, we need to build back up our base of employees and technology and systems and functions within the organization to help support them. So we're looking at the ways to sustain. We also mentioned at the very beginning about the goals of being able to prepare HART for the future, and this is part of that. Slowing of community-focused capital projects. We're continuing with our robust BTI program, but aside from the BTI, as far as capital construction, there will be very little in the budget for next year. We are putting together a small starts application for our Metro Rapid East-West corridor, which will hopefully be completed by the application for the consultant to help us will be done hopefully by the beginning of June. But that will be obviously predicated on additional funding to support that construction in the future. Next slide. So for those that are new to this process, and I'll move quickly through this, something that we do internally, we require the organization to perform its own self-analysis. We use something called a level of service discussion. That's where each of the internal departments outside of operations, which includes putting our vehicles on the street, goes through a process of examining all of its processes, looking for better ways to do business, better ways to save money, and a continued scrubbing of all expenditures over the last 2 years. We always have a target of $500 to $1 million. The last 2 years, we have saved $2.4 million using this process internally, and all of that money has either been put back into service or supportive service or dropped to the bottom line. This will be the second year that increases are being evaluated. Your next slide, please. So each unit that requires an increase to something other than keeping buses on the street is required to complete a document. Also, if we're adding full-time equivalents or people, they have to justify that. And justify the long-term expense of that employee or their reoccurring expense as well. So we ensure that it's a very methodical internal process, first scrubbing, analyzing processes, and then determining whether or not an additional FTE need, we need investment in technology, and so on. The process, you can go ahead. The process comes through the executive committee reviews, the CEO approves or denies, it gets built into the budget, it comes back here as part of it. TDP, this will be very quick. Annual update is due in September. What you will see in the status quo for FY16, there were, in FY15's TDP, there were a series of enhancements that we are not going to be able to provide this year due to our vacancy issue with operators. So we are moving those into FY16, but that will be covered as we talk about the strategic goals and directions in the next presentation. Next. Go next. So next steps. April 10th, LOSs are due. May 1st, the CEO will review those. May 18th, we come back to the FGA, and that's really the first official preliminary budget discussion with numbers. June 1st, we have a preliminary budget considered, and that's approval for dissemination to all of our charter jurisdictions that we're required to send by July 1st. July 1st, we'll have final property evaluations, and in July, we'll be back with a proposed budget review and a setting of the not to exceed millage rate for FY16. So that's the plan.
Okay, any comments, Commissioner Merman?
Yes, Catherine, I wanted to ask you about the Metro Rapid lines and discussion. Number one, I think we need to go back and review that, and I also want to see is how integrated is the Metro Rapid that's in the TDP. Is that integrated into the work the county is doing? Because they know now where the hotspots are and where the need is. And I'm not sure that east-west is a priority.
And while we're loading up the Prezi, right, guys? Okay, so while we're loading up the next presentation, I might take them backwards, but no, I'll take them in the right order. The corridors were identified in the TDP from staff recommendations based on ridership projected through our original HDR study. Our strongest corridor was north-south. The second strongest was east-west because it takes pieces of busy service and cobbles them together. Then the next corridors were Kennedy, Gunn Highway, Dale Mabry, and the final corridor was Brandon, State Road 60. It's completely appropriate, though, for you to say you want to get these corridors shown back to you and make some different decisions on how to prioritize them.
Well, I don't know that we need to do that. But
how does
at
it tie
least
back in?
I think
Yes.
going and sitting down with Parsons and taking your work that HDR did and sitting down with Parsons and see how it integrates into the whole plan they're building, because it kind of like that has been worked on by itself outside what's been going on with the county plan and the policy leadership group work. So what I'd like to see is that any corridor you're looking at, that you sit down with Parsons and it's evaluated as compared to what Parsons has, and see if the corridors are still appropriate based on the past discussions versus what they're seeing for the future.
Well, and I'd say between that and then the conversation we'll have right now, this is the time to do that. We do work very closely with George and Brian over at Parsons, or they're very close with our service development guys. They're sharing the information back and forth. But what you're seeing from these PLG meetings are these fixed guideway corridors, which are not the same as a Metro Rapid. They're sort of a standalone transit investment, so we can get together with them,
Yes,
see what
but
the information they've got, and bring it back to you.
But they know from all the outreach and public outreach feedback that we've gotten, they know exactly where the needs are and where they're seeing the most complaints about service and desire for need.
The intent is, I mean, we're working with them right now, and the intent is once the Go Hillsborough meetings wrap, that we sit down and go through all the comment together, not just the transit specific, but the overall, I want to get here, I want to go there, and then we'll use that as a foundation for the next big TDP. It's just we don't have it now, but we do work closely with them, and we'll come back and pay more attention to those corridors.
And not to belabor the point, but to go back, this is the Metro Rapid East-West is in Hillsborough Avenue. Again, another in-city project. I know we need a Metro Rapid or BRT or something to go from South County into Brandon to hook up to the Selman or I-75. That's coming out of, the Go Hillsborough stuff. So I guess I'm just saying, I hope it's all being worked on together, that you're not working on this in isolation as we had previous discussions, because we weren't coordinating it when we had discussions on this 3 years ago.
What you will see for the TDP as it goes forward into next year is going to be the HART TDP matches the feedback, and it matches what's coming out of this PLG conversation. It's the same input. It's the same, not the same deliverable. Clearly, we have things we turn into the state that are a little different, but the service scenario will be exactly the same. We're working closely with the MPO, so everything that talks about where when you're not driving yourself will dovetail together, and it'll be the same message. So we're working on that.
Taking the service where the need is.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, and I would just say, also looking at our pattern of where our users are.
Yes.
Serving our existing clients as well. That needs to be in there as well.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but we have no service out there.
Right.
So how can you compare that when you have no users, when you have no service? So that's not a fair comparison.
Well, is in the current TDP, and maybe we're going to get into that, any express service from South County?
That is an excellent question. The current TDP does not have, it has some level of expansion for express service. The current TDP includes no park and rides. So as you're aware, we have church parking lots we share, we have rec centers. We have not moved to having a dedicated parking lot. I know I'm a broken record. Think about a park and ride that's a dedicated, secure, safe lot with the dry cleaners, a Starbucks, and where you drop your kid off for daycare. Folks would never have to go anywhere, and that just isn't in the TDP because we have not considered it. Part of this exercise is to say, if that's what we're hearing from Go Hillsborough, that's a growth opportunity to us. We don't have our express routes on twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon. That's a carpool, that's not a full bus route. We need to find some ways to meet those needs, get out there stronger, and this is what we're hearing from our folks in the county is, get me where I don't have to drive, put me on Wi-Fi, let me watch my Breaking Bad reruns or whatever folks want to watch. And that's what there's a lot of interest in. So we are getting that input, and we have an opportunity to change our TDP to match that. And so as we start this presentation, one point I would like to make is we've done a budget update, and that's to tell you how much money we are looking at from different sources. Your feedback today of where you would like to see this agency go strategically is the groundwork that will inform what the budget and the TDP look like going forward. So I just want to make sure that the thought is not that we showed you a full budget. What we're saying is here's where we are financially. What we hear from you today and where you'd like to see the agency go is what that budget is going to do. Reverend Bowers.
As we look at services to the county and the outer areas, are we looking, doing anything to determine what's the origination of the ride and the destination, and see how does that work within all of what you're doing?
Absolutely, we certainly do. We of course we have the requests for service. Then we also, working with our friends at the MPO, have excellent travel data showing where the cars actually are on the road and where they project them going. So we can start looking at capturing that information, making sure that it's not 15 people saying I'd like to go and one car going. And we also work with and I'm very sure Monty has left, or Ray's still here. We work very closely with Tabarda on their van pool data, because the van pools show us these emerging little travel patterns, these very individual of 6 or 7 people saying, I want to go from here to there. And once you hit a critical mass, that's an opportunity for us to get service out there. So there is a lot of good information that we grab onto before we start looking at service recommendations.
I'm wondering, I know on our website we have where you can put in where you are and where you want to go. Do we capture that information, what they're putting in as their inputs?
Let me ask our guys. Our trip planner is powered by Google, so we'll check with our service development folks and see how much information is captured.
It'd be useful.
Well, and how much we can get back to. That's an excellent point.
Yes, Commissioner Vance?
Mine's not so much strategic planning, but there was some comments and some of the information that came out. Mr. Marr's comments, Mr. Seward's recent comments about the lack of operators, and the report that we got in regards to the turnover. It just seems like some of these positions have been vacant for a very long time. What's the holdup in fulfilling these a little bit quicker?
Specifically on our bus operators, we have taken our attrition down. The first year across our industry is very difficult for folks, so you will see us constantly recruiting for bus operators. We cast a wide net. It narrows down between who applies, who passes our test, who comes to our class, who completes a class, and it is a difficult job to do. So as I mentioned in the earlier meeting, our HR team has been working on what can we do to improve our training so folks have a better idea of what to expect when they hit the street, and therefore it's not such a rude awakening, it's an easier transition, and how we can leverage some of our seniors, some of our folks who have retired with 30 or 35 years of experience, getting them back part-time so they can still be that good mentor and that good influence. And that's a program that Ms. Reyes Burkhardt has been looking at and seeing what we can do around the constraints that when you retire from us, you're on FRS, you have to take a break. So it's just, you will always see an opening for bus operations. We average anywhere from 3 to 4 folks leaving in a month. Some of these are voluntary, some of these are not. And we're very well aware that next year we have a slug of folks headed to the end of drop. In 2011, the drop with change became less attractive, so a lot of our folks registered then, and they have to leave us by December. So we're also looking at how to be ready for that and fill those positions so we don't have an issue. Mechanics have been problematic for us. We had a lot of folks who came in at 08 and 09 during the recession, and now the economy's turned around and there are jobs which just pay more than we do, have a lot more available overtime. Our new maintenance director, Vastia Morrow, has also been working with HR on an apprentice program that would get us internal hires, but also students from Brewster, students from different VOTECs. And I believe we have a class of VOTEC students coming through 21st this week, and we're grabbing them during that to try to get those positions filled as well. We've also bulked up on our recruiting side. We added an additional recruiter last year because previously we had one person trying to fill all these openings and it just wasn't working. So it's a bit of an uphill battle, but we are getting to where we're about to turn the corner.
So we're still at one recruiter at this moment?
We
or
have two. We have a full-time recruiter, and then we have a recruiting coordinator who works with that person, and that's helping us get these positions posted faster. We also, in November, went to an online application system, and that's helped us speed up the process because we're doing a lot less paperwork, and it's all online, and that lets us fill our positions faster.
How many total employees are there?
We are budgeted for 700 and change, but I believe filled positions right now is about 703. 400 of those are bus, van, and streetcar operators.
Okay. Yeah, one recruiter would definitely not be enough. Two's even questionable. You might.
Our friends in HR absolutely agree with you, and we expect in the budget this year to see. We're already looking at what to do for training, but also get more of a stabilization on the recruiting, and maybe even putting a dedicated recruiter in the operations group to be able to always be on top of that need.
All right. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Marco, are you doing this from the door? Thank you. So again, what we'd like to talk about today, as we roll into our budget, where is it that you would like to see this agency get? We have some newer board members. We've had a lot more conversation in our county about what's going on in transportation. And we have had the same vision, mission, goals, and core values since 2012. So we have an opportunity here to review them. This is what the board adopts every year, and have a conversation of how this turns into the service that you see us delivering. So again, our vision is to make transit relevant and viable throughout the county. And viable is clearly not a 2-hour trip when I get on the bus in Carrollwood to come here in Ybor. So what is it takes to get to viable? Where do we go? And these are the core values, again, that historically you've adopted, and we use these to inform what is it we're trying to do with our internal culture and what is it we're doing with the service we deliver on the street. You have under your presentation a copy of 3 pieces of paper. These are the goals that you adopt on an annual basis from the previous fiscal years. Now, what are the key performance indicators? These are approved by the board every fall. Jeff noted that we'd recently added the fund balance increase, but these are the 6 measures, the 6 measures that you historically have asked us how to measure for you. And again, we understand good service goes beyond this. That's why we've undertaken some programs to get different measures of what service is. So what is it we are required by board policy to have for a strategic plan? This is a snapshot of board policy. It states that you will adopt a strategic plan, covers a 5-year period, includes our vision, mission, and goals, and then also talks about the role of the CEO in taking your guidance, building the deliverables, managing the plan, and coming back with what we're doing. Historically, we have met this need with the TDP tied to the goals you adopt and the budget. So we just have not historically done a separate standalone, here is our 5-year strategic plan. We would like to get to that. We showed this to the board. Wow, it's been 3 years. 3 years ago when we first adopted these goals, we shared this graphic with the board. This is just a different way to look at what board policy says the relationship is of what guidance is determined where. So based on the goals which you adopt, they come down to the objectives in the executive office, and then how we deploy this through the agency and implement your strategies. Because no one can read that, we have the handouts for you, which are still kind of small, truth be told. And again, they're very broad goals. It's enhancing the customer service. It's fostering a thriving internal environment. And that that generates leeway for the executive team to say how we're going to meet that. But we've been hearing more that our board is looking from you, that you are looking for actual objectives. What's going on in the county? Where are we going? Now, we will make this bigger, we promise. So what have we done since those goals were adopted in 2012? Things which we've gotten. We had the vision, mission, and values adopted. 2012, it's been 3 years now, Jeff, that we started the Regional Farebox Working Group. And you can see the region down there. It's Tabarda plus Polk. It truly is regional. It's over 6,000 square miles. Bike racks were deployed on HART Flex, and now we allow folded bikes on our vehicles, which means bikers can go throughout our entire network. We launched real-time alerts during RNC, so it made it easier for folks to figure out where their service was going. It's a photo of some folks with the phones. This was also the first year we aligned our TDP improvements to the budget cycle. So we were telling you what we wanted to do, how we were paying for it, and it was one of our years with our ridership record. 2013, we implemented service on our first Metro Rapid Corridor. We call it BRT Lite, first one in the state. We also kicked off our Environmental Sustainability and Management Program. It's been a huge effort by staff, but again, when we're done, we will be ISO 14001 certified. This is the highest environmental standard available. Very proud of this. We launched our partnership with CDC of Tampa, where we are working directly with a training program to see what we need for employees, and it's generated some really great staff for us. As an aside, the individual you see in this picture, Angel, has been, he's done 3 tours overseas in the past decade to Iraq and Afghanistan, and we've been very proud to have him come home and come back to work at HART. We did our first workshop on future partnership and funding opportunities. This meeting was down at County Center. We had our friends from Tabarda, DOT, and all around the region there. We put our ads on One Bus Away. We launched our programs to maximize farebox recovery, going back and making sure every penny is there. One Bus Away, our app we developed for less than $50,000 with USF, also rolled out in 2013. We completed the federally funded renovation at 21st Avenue. It no longer looks like an old trucking facility, and it is a LEED certified building, and yet another ridership record. So fiscal 14, still a lot of stuff going on. Completed our CNG station, which was partially funded from a federal grant. Route 46 was extended out to Strawberry Ridge and Dover, and we've had huge response to Commissioner Murmer's first point. Folks love that service and want to see more of it. We implemented our first HCC semester pass, which has been very popular for us. I have a story of a lady who goes to my son's daycare, who rides with her HCC semester pass. She has a daycare on Kennedy. She goes to school at HCC, and she lives over here in Ybor, and that semester pass makes a huge difference for her. We also added our real-time information to Google Live, so you don't need One Bus Away. We were one of the first 10 agencies in the world to go onto live data with Google. We've started adding LED lighting at our facilities. It's much more cost-effective, brighter, longer lasting. Staff loves it. Megabus has come to town in fiscal 14. We finished a PD&E for Metro Rapid East-West. From our marketing team, we launched the extremely popular Streetcar Live concert series. That's first weekend of the month. We actually have a band on the streetcar, and yet another ridership record. So just a recap of the past 3 years, we have been doing and employing and getting a lot done. But we know we are not there. We know we still have a ways to go, so people feel that our transit is relevant and attractive. You want to take it, and it makes sense for how you travel. Keep waiting for our slide. So key themes, 3 things that I have talked to our staff about. big initiatives for us to make sense out of all the work we're doing. An employer of choice, a transportation agency of choice, and a change agent. Now, why in this place? It is always easier for us to keep good employees here than it is to replace somebody. And being an employer of choice, we have our 12 initiatives under this, our 12 values that come from this Society for Human Resource Management. They're broad out there. You know your job is secure, you can thrive, you can balance your work and your life. And really we think these boil down to fairness, respect, and recognition. And how do we do that at work? Again, being an employer of choice makes us more attractive to good staff. It retains the good staff that's here. It helps us balance the needs from our competing generations here at work. So from here, you'll see slides broken into 3 sections. Underway, which is what we're currently doing. We did our first rodeo in 7 years. We have a broad wellness program. We've greatly expanded our community engagement process. We're out at a lot more meetings. And we've revitalized our HART Star recognition program. In the pipeline, what does this mean? It means work has actively begun. So the project management office is kicking off in the next few weeks, and we've done all the groundwork for this. We are improving our facilities. We're discussing the pay for performance for this year. The apprentice program is a everything old is new again, which will be implemented in the next few weeks with our friends in the community. Working on our internal communications plan and overhauling our payroll to be more dynamic and more accurate. So what is planned? What's coming up next? For 16, we have an agency commitment to expanded OD, organizational training and development. We will be renegotiating our labor contracts. We're doing this summer we're doing a compensation and classification review, first time in 4 years, so just truing us up to the market. Implementing career ladders, what does that mean? It means if you come here for a job, you have a chance to grow and get ahead. You don't have to wait for somebody to retire. You don't have to wait for someone to leave the agency. If you want to grow, you can. And hand in hand in that is individual development plans. It can be tough to stay excited if you don't have a big project outside you're delivering. So how do we keep our folks engaged and delivering their best for the taxpayers in this county who pay for us? Next, we have transportation agency of choice. And if you are not driving yourself, we want HART to be the first choice, not just for reporters to call, which we do love when we hear from our friends in the press, but if you're not driving yourself, this should be your first resource you look at. So critical is our investment in service on the street. We manage these resources to maximize service on the street. And again, we focus on our customers. When someone drives for us, they are doing customer service in a 30,000-pound vehicle. Our operators are marriage counselors. They are crisis intervention. They are tour guides. They do this and they drive a large vehicle, and we're very, very aware of that. So it's underway 3 times a year we change service. This is spaced out in about 4-month increments. Our passengers know about when to expect this. This gives our staff a chance to pick different pieces of work. This is when we manage how much overtime we have and how many employees which we need to get our service on the street. We always do our TDP update. We have simplified our ID requirements. If you are over 65, unless you are Benjamin Button, you're not going to get under 65. So someone over 65 no longer has to renew their ID. If you are a student and you have a student ID, we no longer require folks to come downtown and get a separate HART ID, which they will, of course, lose. So we've simplified some of these requirements. We've talked earlier about our participation in Go Hillsborough. We have expanded security. We now have a security guard over at MTC every time that facility is open, and we've revitalized our partnership with TPD, so we're seeing a much cleaner, much safer facility. And our new website should be rolling out in the next month or two, and we're very excited about that. Also in the pipeline, the facility maintenance, ongoing streetcar maintenance, which is a combination of quarter life and facility improvements. We are, again, we mentioned earlier, looking at new training for operators and revitalizing our maintenance training program. Wi-Fi, the contract has been awarded, and this will be free Wi-Fi on our vehicles for our employees. Bus and fleet expansion, which Jeff has touched on previously, and again, going to agency-wide KPIs. Yes, sir, Commissioner Beckner.
All right, Catherine, can you give us an update real quick on where you're at in the conversations with the schools about offering the bus passes to students? Because when I met with Mr. Eakins, the new superintendent, he didn't seem to be informed on what we wanted to.
When the schools brought in their new transportation staff
Right.
from Orlando, we've met with them a couple of times, and what we have from the schools is they're looking this year to stabilize what's going on with their transportation, and they will be interested in the future to talk to us about more partnerships. We did our staycation this year for March, and so we don't have those finalized numbers yet on how many students took advantage of them. But what we heard from this year was They were interested in working with us, but this year they wanted to stabilize. But we'll re-engage and make sure that that message is getting carried all the way through.
And we would re-engage, and when they said this year, they're talking about for this upcoming school year, or they're talking
School
about?
year that they're in now.
That they're in now,
And
right,
when we've
okay.
reached out to them, that's still been their focus, but we will make sure posted where we are.
So we can re-engage now and just start looking towards the future in the fall?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And then what do we have coming up? Smart cards. By the end of this year, we should have readers, or the pilot program will include readers on Metro Rapid and Streetcar, make it easier for folks to pay. True commuter park and rides, so where you can actually park your car and catch an express bus coming in. We have 5 cameras on every bus. We do not have cameras on vans. We would like that not just for accident reporting purposes, but as Mr. Saunders and Mr. Morris stated, it's a really great way to make sure that we know exactly what's happening on the van. So when we investigate a complaint, it's very easy for us to see what's going on. IVR is where we'll call our customers and let them know we are on the way. We also discussed earlier today rolling out a customer satisfaction program. And then pilot programs for enhanced service. What does that mean? It's what we've discussed, where we would be combining a taxi voucher with paratransit, so folks could use a cab company to get home, and also looking at getting Metro B or some of these dynamic shuttle providers to come and do a first mile, last mile solution. And here's where we start talking about, this isn't a 40-foot bus, but we don't need a 40-foot bus everywhere. There are routes in our TDP that we have planned service expansion on Saturdays and Sundays. We average over $60 an hour. It's not cost effective. And folks don't want the bus to run once an hour on Saturday and get dragged all over God's good earth. They want to get where they're going. So the intent of these pilot programs is get our private vendors who do this really well to help us develop the technology where somebody can get that shuttle that takes them where they want to go. It's more responsive, it's more flexible, and frankly, it's the ideal solution for South County or further out in East County or town and country. Doing these distributed trips, which is how people are already traveling, not compelling them to get to a bus, which is expensive and it's once an hour, finding something which is relevant for them. So this solicitation should be going out at some point over the summer. We're looking forward to see what we get back from vendors, and we have this funded through, or will be funded in next year's budget as a standalone pilot program, as a new way to invest and see, hey, do people like this? Is this a tool? Do we take this forward further into our TDP? And then finally, a change agent. Now, the universe is changing. 3 years ago, when we were talking about our IT, we wanted to have a real facility in Atlanta where everything backed up to. It doesn't exist anymore. We're in the cloud, it's cheaper, it's a new world. And not to belabor the point, but 3 years ago, none of us talked about Uber and Lyft. None of us talked about shuttle programs that were based on your phone. And who put the word disruption in a sentence? It's a different universe between technology and how people travel. And as a recession has ended, people are going to work and to school and to play fundamentally differently. If we're not on top of that, we're never going to catch those trips. We also have an opportunity here, because we are a big agency in our region, to lead the change, to help our friends at smaller agencies be able to do some dynamic things. And this gives us different ways to spend the money that we're entrusted to spend. You know, it's not our money, it's our taxpayers' money. Let's look at doing new things. If we don't do something new, we know we will always get the same thing. A regional leader, again, we are the strongest ridership. We are 5 to 10% ahead of PSTA on a given month, and it's just that's where the service is going. So we can lead these changes, whether it's the fare box, shuttle services, a whole bunch of ideas. Again, being solution-oriented and delivering on what folks expect us to do, and leading with our technology. So what do we have underway? A lot of regional coordination, which we'll be talking about in 15 minutes, Commissioner. We have the environmental program, which is very cutting edge for us. The student pass programs we've talked about previously. New intermodal connections. We have bike share, we have Red Coach, we have Megabus, and this is just the beginning. I mentioned earlier today, we're working very closely with our friends at the county on making the ferry come to fruition, getting that grant spent appropriately and in a good timeline. A new One Bus Away and Google Transit features. What does that mean? Well, you can find where your bus is now. Wouldn't it be great if somebody could have a trip planner, so if they missed a bus, just like a Google map, it recalculated and tell you the next best transfer to make, not get off the corner and wait for 45 minutes. And our ITS guys are on the board of One Bus Away, and they're being very active in making that happen. The regional revenue collection process, also the overall fare box, changing the technology behind the scenes so we can get the data to plan with. Somebody can download their fare on their phone and we just click and go. The airport shuttle working group is still in existence, and we're looking at what resources we can work with the state to have a good regional connection that runs hourly, half hourly, whatever we need to do to get folks to and from the airport from both sides of the bay. And again, we did the streetcar study that went to the streetcar board in December and HART in January. So being very aggressive in supporting investment with our streetcar. It's a gem. We own the cars. We are in for a penny. We're in for a pound. In the pipeline, private partner lease agreements, which Jeff has talked about, whether making different use of property adjacent to parking rights or leasing parking back. We have a lot of school outreach coming up, getting our new patrons while they're young before they're driving. Electronic manifests on our vans so folks don't have paper. There's a little dashboard telling them where to go and when. We have awarded the contract for an agency-wide IT assessment. Public agencies don't innovate really well, so we're asking somebody to come in and tell us what in IT we should be doing, where should we be going, and this is a great opportunity to do business with PSGA. They have a very robust ops technology program, and we'd like to piggyback on that. Also enhancing SharePoint to go live within our agency and making better use of those tools. And planned, again, we talked about the pilot programs. The new website will have the capacity when we have the support and customer service to do live chat. We'll also have advertising, and then our environmental certification. So we've gone through all this. There is a lot of work that we are doing, a lot of little things we're doing. We are getting a little more attention. We are moving the narrative, but how does this tie together for us in the county? So a few things that we see internally. Ridership continues to grow, and it's getting to where even when the bus is full, people are showing up. How do we accommodate that with success, with our operators not being burned out and having schedules which match reality? We're starting to stretch schedules so a bus isn't every half hour. It's half hourly to 35 minutes to 40 to accommodate demand. That's just where we have to go. We have unique challenges here in Hillsborough County. We've talked a little bit about them today. We can take solutions from other places, but we aren't like everywhere else. We have an awful lot of turf with an awful lot of people who can't get where they want to go, and we have $65 million to spend. How do we do that to meet these challenges and opportunities?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Forgot to put it on silent.
That was a good icebreaker, Yvette. And then we're also sort of at a hinge moment of, we can make the choice to keep going with a 40-foot bus service delivery model, or we can keep concentrating those buses where they are full and they are very appropriate. Commissioner, 10 of our routes do over 60% of our ridership, and that's in Tampa proper. There's clearly a need for that, but we have the opportunity also to find different ways to serve these other travel patterns, different vehicles, different technology. The staff is very excited about these opportunities. We would like to make that by the end of this year, if not this year, next year, that folks can't call us the bus company because we're truly a transit agency. We do dynamic bus service and so much more, and we have that opportunity. And we're already a regional leader. We are industry-wide. We are asked to come and present. Our maintenance director is presenting at the Women's Transportation Seminar in Chicago in May. Jeff is going to the National Smart Card Alliance in June. One of only 2 transit people ever to speak to this group. Al keeps getting sucked away from his day job to go to do procurement presentations around the country. We are regional and industry leaders, and we are excited to bring this to bear. So just again, a snapshot of where we've been going. Where do you want us to go? What do you want to see for the fiscal 16, 17, 18 window? What are your priorities for a strategic plan?
Okay. Very good, thank you. She's covered a lot of ground. Any board members wish to comment or ask questions? Give input? Yes, Councilman Vance?
So we've talked a lot about the county portion of it. Is there anything out there as far as the projected circulators that we would want to consider?
Yes, the current TDP has several opportunities identified for flex service. One would be in Temple Terrace, and the flex has been a good way for us to cover square mileage in really responsive and focused service. We would like to continue that and continue to expand flex, and we can get the map. We've got it in the TDP, and we can show what we're looking at for the status quo growth and also the vision growth for the circulators.
Ms. Shanahan?
First of all, it's excellent presentation. Very thoughtful. I would, just a couple of comments for, I guess, consideration, is think about changing the order in which you list employer of choice, transportation agency of choice, change agent. because priorities are established by paper, presentations, and I think I wouldn't change those in terms of your top 3 areas, but you might want to have transportation agency of choice be one, a change agent second, and employer of choice third. That's a topical sort of suggestion, but I think as it comes to your priorities, I do think there's a lot in the change agent that is prioritization. I love the non-bus options and the use of technology. I think there's so much happening, and as much as we can be a regional/industry leader in looking at how and where we could partner with some of the technology companies to say, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? And I would just like to reiterate, support for the non-areas of the county coverage. However we can do that in a creative way, and it doesn't have to be all buses, which I'm happy to hear you say.
Any other board members? Commissioner Merman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I still want to reiterate that we will have at the next board meeting or the one after that, go back to the discussion about the merger and the partnerships. And I guess, I think the one thing I would like to see more in anything is that this agency doesn't operate in isolation anymore, that they are a collaborator and partner with other agencies, PSTA, the county, DOT, T-BARTA, Expressway Authority. I didn't see that theme in here. I still see an organization that wants to kind of operate within themselves, which is fine, and you have to do a good job doing that, and you do a good job doing that, and this was a great presentation. But I guess underway, I would like to really see more of that collaboration work group, the same work group that we put together for you to operate under the policy leadership group, that continue to go forward. That really is something that you're participating on that I don't think is in here.
And thank you, Commissioner. We many of our programs are in concert with DOT, with TBARTA, and in fact, we've been meeting a lot with the Expressway on some creative solutions coming in from Brandon, not just bus toll lanes, but what we can do together. Let us put our heads together about a good way to weave that in and highlight that we're doing this work.
I think we're doing great. We've able to survive actually through the recession and get to where we are today, but I do think the future is going to be much different for transit, especially in Hillsborough County. And this is all about money. We can put all the words we want to on a piece of paper, but if we don't have money and we don't have those partnerships with FDOT, because I watch other regions, I've watched it since I was in the legislature, them getting money for buses and different things, in the House and Senate budgets. So we need to strengthen our partnerships so that we are also getting a piece of that pie. And that was my conversation with Senator Lee and Senator LaValla and Richard Corcoran was we got to be at the table. And right now I don't see us at the table. We want to be at the table, but we haven't been. So we got to have a good case to present to really convince them that they should fund us.
Let us get an update on what we have with DOT so we can use that as a baseline and take it forward from there.
Reverend Bowers?
Yes, very good presentation. A lot of information. But you spoke about using the IT program to kind of coordinate things, even with PSTA. Will that coordination or that collaboration, will that help us to kind of bridge the gap between the consolidation, or to show that we are working together, that our two agencies will have a direct connection and kind of solve that problem?
Let me caveat that it is a good business decision if we can save money and do better, that we should be looking at a friend who does the same thing. Nobody else is more like us than our neighboring transit agency. So just when it comes down to dollars and cents, we should look at that. Having said that, we specifically, when I went to Tallahassee in February, identified IT as an opportunity for further collaboration to Senator Latvala. So I would be surprised if there wasn't an expectation that that's how we show that we are being more collaborative.
Thank you.
I would just like to mention part of what Commissioner Merman had said was that technology is changing, and I agree with that. I didn't see on here, I think, wasn't HART involved in a project with automated vehicles where we were partnering with FDOT? I didn't see that in here.
We have worked with Cutter on some of the programs for automated vehicles, and we are supportive with Thea with their work with automated vehicles as well. It's still more in a design situation, but we are participating in that we can provide opportunities for them to tie into our network that help them get the data and the information that they need. We have done the mobile iPod program with FDOT, which was sort of some heads-up information that helped with safety management, helped say, hey, you've got somebody close to you, a vehicle closer to there. And we were one of the first agencies in the state to pilot that technology with an FDOT partnership.
Right, I seem to recall that. Because I think there is, in the coming years, there's going to be a big paradigm shift in the way we do travel with the advent of technology and automated vehicles. And just something to, automated buses may be in the future, years down the future, but something to keep in the back of our minds as we're making these 10-year plans. I know FDOT has said that they are actually incorporating that in their plans. The other thing, and I totally agree with the service into the county and that there are some unmet needs in South County. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we can serve every square inch of the county, but I do agree that maybe some express service out there and building the ridership, and if that's not in the TDP, that
It will be now.
Yeah, something to look into. And then the other thing is, there's basically two types of service as I see it. There's the fixed route, which is what we've typically done, and then there's point to point. And obviously, when you do point to point, you're gonna, your costs go up dramatically, and it's shown in our paratransit, which is the closest thing we have to point to point. And so this is just my little pet thing to always bring up is, in order to give maximum coverage to the county, if we could unleash some of the regulations that we have on our rideshare programs, we could, immediately relieve a lot of, the problems that we have out in the outer reaches of the county, because that's the beauty of the rideshare is they're there where, they'll be where the need is, because, the model's a little bit different than traditional services, private services. But I would like to, also, I know we used to do van pool here at HART, and I don't know if there is any need. I know T-BARTA has taken that over. I'm not sure how extensive that is, if it's working out. Maybe just a quick review in the future to see if that's something we may want to talk to them about bringing back, or if it's flourishing the way it is, but maybe just an update. I know it had switched just before I came to the board, so I don't have a really good understanding of that service, but possibly that could help in the short term, alleviate some of these needs out in the outer county.
And Ray Shermonte and I are meeting this week, so that'll be on our agenda.
Perfect. Okay. Anybody else? Melendez, Director Melendez?
Madam Chair,
Oh,
we don't want to keep a senator waiting. We have 1 minute.
we have 1 minute.
Jeff can sit in for me.
Okay, Jeff can sit in for Miss Egan is what I'm hearing while she
Been
goes. They
voluntold.
need to excuse themselves for their call, but we certainly want to continue the conversation. So, yes, Director Melendez?
Sure. Well, in the interest of time, I'll prepare some written remarks and submit them to staff. Okay, if that's acceptable.
Your written remarks?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
in
they
lieu
can
in
circulate
lieu
it
of providing them
to
now,
board
that way,
members.
just to respect everyone's time.
Okay.
So,
Did
and
anybody, yes,
everyone being here.
Director Jacobs?
Thank you. Wow. So many things crashing around in my mind over this. First, it's a great report, and thank you. I love strategic planning like this. I think there are so many opportunities for us to really look at starting to be the tip of the spear at solving some of the transportation problems. I think the county is a big issue. that we have to deal with, but we can't do that without partnering, and I think the partnering aspect is important, whether it's the Expressway Authority, whether it's MPO, whether it's the city and the county, but land use is going to be a critical issue in solving this problem. And, you know, to be, as an architect and being quite frank, if we continue to promote the kind of development in the suburban mode that goes down in there, it doesn't really matter what we do. We're not going to solve the problem. We're going to make it worse. So we really have to look at how we do those things in terms of land use and how we direct that. I think the other opportunity we have is to promote the health aspect of public transportation that we provide as an alternative, because if you look at design and public health right now, there's a lot of real interest going around internationally on how that affects the health of communities. And if we can start talking about that as a new mode of transportation that promotes public health, there's all kinds of research. I mean, the AIA is doing a $100 million study over 10 years with the Rockefeller Foundation on just how design affects public health. And we can start promoting ourselves as an agency that is also at the tip of the spear in terms of solving those kinds of things and making our communities healthier to live in. I think that's a real opportunity we have that puts us a step ahead of everybody else.
Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Morgan?
Thank you. And just one final, the choice rider really wasn't mentioned in the strategic plan. I think kind of talked around it with the Wi-Fi and some technology, but if strategically we don't spend the next 5 years working towards getting that choice rider and how to figure out how to pick them up and get them to work, this bus system's growth will be hampered, I think, a great deal. We want our ridership growth, but our ridership growth is in that choice rider. And that's why I think the suburban growth really has a lot of your choice riders. Actually, they're in downtown Tampa too, going out into the county to jobs. So I think there's just a lot of movement of people right now. And but that one element of getting that professional to get on a bus, I think, is really going to be a strategic issue for us for the future.
Yes, Director Melendez.
I'll just make some abridged comments and then maybe submit something more in writing. But I really want to, I guess, acknowledge, some of the comments made by Mr. Jacob and the partnership, and Commissioner Merman regarding, the choice rider. As a commuter myself, I can think of scenarios under which, if they existed, I would use them. So just from a user standpoint, in fact, I'm going to be attending my local Go Hillsborough event tomorrow night, so I'm looking forward to that. But in short, one of the, I'll prepare some written remarks, but it's going to focus on, and this is a compliment to our staff. I think that, we have a great asset right now that we have staff. We have the people and the resources that can help us implement the ideas that we have, and in collaboration. I think it's articulating it for them so they can get focused. And I think just one final comment, and I'll expound on it in my written remarks, is, we don't operate in a closed system that generates money without infusion from either federal, state, or private investment. Our taxpayers, we are funded by the taxpayers. And I think that, and I'm going to be talking with and attending, communicating with my commissioners, because I'm a county resident, about economic development. The more local money we have, the more local money there is available to fund the things that we're talking about. So I think funding and partnerships, private partnerships. I was reading earlier about, up in North Carolina, out in Washington State, the partnerships that are happening with local, park and rides, and even permit fees for parking, and I know that the airport has, they're funding all of their improvements based upon parking fees. So not that I'm suggesting that or proposing it, I'm just floating it out there. But I do want to applaud Catherine and staff, because I think they've given us enough to chew on here, but it's now our responsibility to really articulate for them where we want to go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Any other board members wish to comment? Well, thank you all. I guess we'll go ahead and, let me look at my agenda. Do we have any members of the public who would like to give public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.